About a quarter of this year has passed, and this is the time of year where I start to feel like the year is flying by, and I haven't gotten around to nearly enough of the things that I said I wanted to. The truth is, time flies in life, and if we aren't super intentional about getting things in the calendar and making plans, we often look back and feel like we did nothing with our time. If you're feeling that way, we hope this episode gives you the boost you need to start intentionally creating the big full life you're after.
It's the perfect time of year to film this episode because we're coming up on the end of Q1, going into Q2. And I know for me, probably only because I live in the North, but winter is such a time of just rest and honestly hibernation. And I'm kind of okay with that. But going into Q2, when the weather starts to get nice, I really start to crave doing a lot more and really filling my calendar. And more so from like the social aspect. This episode is going to be very focused on how to fill your calendar, do a lot, make plans with your friends, and really just live, like you said, a big full life in 2026 instead of just saving a bunch of things that you want to do and saying that you want to do them, but then never actually putting them in your calendar and making the plans. So I know that that's super prevalent for me. I'll say, my friends and I will say we want to do all of these things, but then it'll just be a thing that we want to do and we never actually intentionally put it into our calendar and go out and do this. So it's a good time for this episode. And we're going to talk about how to intentionally fill your year, intentionally fill your month, and intentionally fill your week, just to give you guys a good idea of things that you can do this year to make you feel like you live a big full life.
One of my friends here and I were talking about this recently about how much our friend group will say, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to go here, I want to, try this coffee shop, or oh my gosh, I really want to go do a workout class there, or we should go on a girls' trip, or all these things. And we talked about the ratio of how many of those things actually end up getting executed on. And it's very slim. Like we talk about all these things, but how often do we actually go and do them? And I just feel like the older I get, the more I realize that I want to be the grandma who's looking back and saying, oh my gosh, I got to do all of these things, and not just big things, but little things. Like, yeah, I remember I used to go to, you know, pickleball classes, or I'm doing an aerial hammock, like silks class this weekend at the circus school because I've talked about it literally for 6 months since this place opened. I thought it'd be so fun to try. I said to my friends, we should go do it. Everyone was like, yeah, totally. And then no one ever followed through. And so I said, all right, fine, I'm going to go do it. And it's like, those are the kind of things that I want to look back on when I'm older and be like, yeah, I got to do all of these things. And if I'm not intentionally putting those in the calendar, I'm going to get to 85 and I'm going to look back and I'm going to say, I wish I had done that. And I think that would be my biggest regret when I think about, being 85, right? It seems so far away, but being 85 is just 85 calendar years, of your life. And I'm on calendar year, 27? So, you know what I mean? Like, it's going to continue to pass. And it means that each of those calendar years, it's my responsibility to be intentional about how I spend my time so that when I get to 85, I look back and I'm like, yeah, I really got to do the things that I wanted to do. And that's what today's episode's all about.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things that when you're not intentional with filling your calendar and actually planning things in advance, you kind of default to the like, let's go grab dinner kind of plans, if you even see your friends in general. Because I know for me, I was outlining today's episode and I was looking ahead at the rest of my month. And the next 2 weekends are completely free. I have zero plans. I didn't make an effort to go make any plans with my friends. Alex works on the weekends. So, generally speaking, I know that my weekends are for myself. So, there's no reason why I'm not planning things in advance. But I think we kind of fall into that trap of, just defaulting to, oh, well, the weekend's coming up in 2 days and I don't want to sit inside and do nothing. So, maybe I'll just ask someone to go grab dinner or we'll go get drinks or we'll go out. But there's so much more to life that we could be doing. There's so many fun, just different things that we could be doing, but you do have to be intentional with filling your calendar to make sure that you're actually going and doing them.
Hmm. And I think that brings us, into what we want to talk about first and figuring out how to intentionally fill your calendar. And it's to look at your calendar. I think before you get into really filling it going forward, you need to look at your last 3 months. Like go onto your Google Calendar. I'm a big GCal girl. Go onto your Google Calendar or your planner or whatever it might be that you use and put it into some sort of view where you can see a month at a glance. If you can see the last quarter at a glance, that's great. But I know GCal, I don't think they allow that. But just look at the last couple of months at a glance and ask yourself, like, do you genuinely feel like you made good use of your time? Look at your social plans. Were they social plans that you said yes to because you wanted to be there or out of obligation? How many social plans did you have a week? Were they things that energized you or things that depleted you? Like, what was really on your calendar, and reflect on that? Because I think it was like this time last year. Well, I guess 2 years ago, back in 2024, when I was living in Massachusetts, my answer to that question would have been I had literally hardly any social plans. I would maybe go to dinner with my friends once a week, but I was living in the suburbs where it was a suburb where there was really nothing to do. And so I never was going out and doing things. But then this time last year in 2025, I was doing too much. Like, I had a plan every night after work, even if it was just me going to play pickleball at the local court, there was something on my calendar. And that was like, it was depleting me because I didn't have enough time to recharge as an introvert. So you have to figure out what that balance looks like. But looking at your calendar in the last 3 months is a good way to see, what have I done, and am I doing enough of the things that I actually want to do?
Yeah, I've been a big physical planner girl lately. I feel like I talked about this in one of our previous episodes, but I've been very into my physical planner, especially the monthly view page. Sometimes for like a weekly or a daily planner, I'll still go back to Notion because it needs to be a little bit more granular. But for a monthly view, I love my physical planner. And it's really good to slot in those social things in a monthly view so that you can go back and look at them. And what I've been doing is I bought a pack of highlighters and I'll kind of use the highlighters to color code my monthly planner view. So it's like, okay, pink is for my social events and green is for my like appointments and life admin things. So you can easily go back to January, February, and March and be like, okay, how many pink highlights are in my calendar? What did I actually do? And then it can kind of like jog your memory on what you actually did. The other thing that I like doing, and I'm not super consistent with this because my camera roll is an absolute mess, but in 2025, I was good about doing it and it did help. Organize your camera roll into monthly folders. So at the end of the month, just go back into your camera roll and save all of your photos and like the memories that you want to remember from that month. Save it into a January 2026 album and a February 2026 album. And that helps me so much to remember what I actually did and be like, wow, I did do a lot this month and I didn't even remember it. Or this month I didn't really intentionally make any plans. I didn't have as many fun outings as I would have liked to. My friends and I just kind of like grabbed dinner last minute a couple of times and that was that. But those two things can help you kind of look back on your previous quarter.
I think the biggest thing to ask yourself when you're looking at your calendar is, does this calendar reflect the life that I want to be living? If someone, I love this, the quote of, if someone was following you around for a week, like, what would they think that you value? And I think your calendar is a big indicator of that. I think where you spend your time and where you spend your money is a big indicator of what you value. And so when you're looking at your calendar and you're reflecting on it, ask yourself, does this calendar represent the life that I want to be living? And if it doesn't, of course, there are certain obligations that we have to tend to, grocery shopping, cleaning our house. Maybe you are bringing your kids to school or taking care of a family member, or you yourself are going to doctor's appointments or whatever it may be. Of course, there's going to be things like that that don't necessarily bring us the most joy, but we have to do anyways. But outside of that, ask yourself, yeah, when I look at this, does this calendar, I'm like, yeah, like, that's the life I want to be living. Like, what I'm slotting in here reflects the things that are important and meaningful to me. And if not, just use that as data to say, okay, going forward, here's what I'm going to change.
Yeah, I did this exercise preparing for this episode, kind of what we're talking about here, just looking back on my personal Q1 and, getting those takeaways and seeing what I actually did. And I realized that the trips that I took in Q1 were one, a weekend trip to Key West for my friend's wedding. And we went like super last minute. It was 48 hours that we were in Key West. It was like we were there strictly for the wedding. The weather honestly wasn't that nice. So we didn't want to extend the trip. And Key West is so expensive. I don't know if you've ever been
Oh,
there.
I've
It is
never
so
been.
expensive. The hotels are crazy there. So we're
Oh.
like, okay, we're just going to spend 48 hours there and go for the wedding. So we did that. I took a trip to New York for work. I was there for 24 hours. And then I haven't gone yet because at the time we're recording this, Q1 isn't over yet. But the last week of Q1, I'm going to Florida for my friend's 30th birthday. And it's like, those are all great. But my kind of overall reflection is that I didn't intentionally fill my calendar with things for me, and I want to be more intentional with that for the rest of 2026. Like, all 3 of those trips were for something a little bit out of my control, and I want to do a better job of filling my calendar with things that are in my control. Like, where do I actually want to go? What are the trips that I want to do? In Q1, I really wanted to go visit my friends in Nashville, just like fly down for the weekend. I could stay with my friends with super cheap. The flights on Allegiant are so cheap. So there's literally no reason why I shouldn't have done it, but I put it off and I never ended up doing
Mhm.
it. So those are the types of things where prioritize yourself and also just, yeah, look back on the last 3 months and see what you actually did.
Yeah, which goes into this idea of once you're looking at your calendar and you're saying, okay, does this reflect a life that I want to be living? You have to figure out what is that life that you want to be living, you know? And I think that this aspect and this part of the equation is where a lot of people end up living, not making the things they care about a priority because they don't even really know what they value or care about. And I'll speak for myself, but I think this is true for so many other people. It's so easy for me to get lost in the day to day of just, I wake up, I get ready, I make my breakfast, I work all day. Then I'm like, okay, let me get to a workout class. I come home, I'm making dinner, I clean. And then it's like, by that point, I might have 30 minutes to watch half of a TV show and then I go to bed. And day to day, its time seems to pass so much that I sometimes forget, not that I forget what I value, but I forget what I enjoy. Like, I actually really enjoy improving on things. I was thinking about this last night as I was going to bed, just thinking about filming this episode for some reason. And this is going to sound so niche, okay? But I feel like people know this if you've listened to the podcast for a long time, but I love trying just new things, like random new
You
things. I
do.
think I do. I think it's really fun and I enjoy the challenge of just being like bad at something. I think it's a skill we all should have, just be comfortable being bad at things. So some of y'all know I've tried trapeze classes. I took juggling classes. I literally have my juggling balls in my living room. Like, I just love doing random things. I keep saying I want to learn how to rollerblade, and I have rollerblades, but I don't take the time to learn how to do it. But I was thinking the other day about my friend and I went to dinner last Friday, and the Olympics are happening, and there was like a curling competition, which is where they like push the little puck thing on the ice and they like, smooth out the ice. I don't fully understand what goes on there, but you watch it, right? And you're like, this looks crazy. Like, it is a very unique sport, right? But last night I'm sitting there and I'm like, that would be kind of fun to try. So I Google curling class in Tampa. Sure enough, there's a place that has one. Now I'm like, you know what? I might go do that because why not? Like, how fun would it be again to be like, even just thinking about in this chapter of life, I'm on a date with someone or something, and they're like, "Oh, what are some fun things that you do?" I'm like, "Well, I went to a curling class last weekend, and I
You're like,
like
"I
to
do
exercise."
trapeze and I
Yeah.
juggle and
Well, it's
I"
just
you
like,
do have a lot of fun hobbies like that.
yes, I have so many fun hobbies, but I think that adds so much fun to my life, and I genuinely enjoy the process of learning something new. And obviously, I'm not in college anymore, so I'm not sitting there in a textbook day in and day out, and I learn new things in my job, but I like learning. So it's like, how do I bring more of that into my life? And I think that in the day to day, it's so easy to forget those things. Or even, I really love doing community service. I love that. When I was in college, I mean, in high school, I was a student council kid. I did it at the regional level, the state level, the national level. In college, every extracurricular and job I had was about serving people, and I loved it. But then I got lost in the day to day of my career. And I just forgot kind of. I forgot that that's something that really brings me joy. And so I think it's important to look at your calendar, ask if it reflects the life you want to be living, but then ask yourself, what kind of life do I want to be living? What things light me up? What brings me joy? And then you can figure out how to actually add more of that into your calendar.
It is so true. If you're not filling your calendar in advance, it's so easy to assume that you don't have time to do any of these things. I think about this a lot with my year in Nashville because I was only there for 12 months. And I feel like that really showed me how fast a year goes and how it's so easy to
Mhm.
have things on your list and say, oh, I want to do that. I want to do that. And then you get to the end of the year and you never actually did it because if you're not
Yeah.
putting it on your calendar, it's never going to happen. And then a year is going to fly by and you're going to look back and say, and I have the most amazing memories in Nashville, but I could have had a lot more memories in Nashville.
Hmm.
And I think for me, on the topic of, deciding what a full life looks like for you, kind of on, like, the smaller scale, but I guess this does apply to, like, the larger scale too, and what I mean by that is, like, it's easy to look at, what a big full life means to you and say, "I wanna travel, I wanna go to, like, every country in the world, I wanna do a lot outside of the country," but then it's also on the smaller scale too of just kind of more your day to day. I really love, like, exploring and finding new places and, like, exploring new areas, like, when I travel and this is how Alex is too, so, like, when we did our trip to Japan, we never had a plan for the day. We would wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning and literally just walk 20,000 steps and, like, explore and see what we would come up on, and that is so my ideal travel style. I can't lay on a beach. I don't relax well. I like to explore, but if you think about that on the smaller scale of your day to day, how much are you actually doing that? Like, how much are you seeking out different parts of town and different areas of the city that you live in and actually just like going on a walk or finding a cute little boutique to go in or a thrift store to go in? I can think of so many areas of Pittsburgh that I spend virtually no time in because it's just easy to get into the monotony of your life and of your
Mhm.
week and not actually seek them out.
Yes, my friend and I, when we were talking about this idea of actually executing on the things that you say you wanna do, I said to her, I was like, "You can be bored in any city. You could literally live in New York City and you can find a way to be bored. If you don't actually go out and do anything, you're going to be bored." And so I kept saying to one of my other friends too, with living in St. Pete, and if you're new to the podcast, I moved to St. Pete from Massachusetts in January of 2025. So I've been here for a year. And when I moved here, now granted, last year was very chaotic and I wasn't physically able to do lots of things that I said I wanted to do. But the year has flown by so fast. I thought my 15-month lease was when I signed that lease, I was like, 15 months is so long. I remember talking to you about it. I was like,
Yeah. I was like,
15
no, it's
months.
not.
Yes, I was like, 15 months just feels like, I don't know, that's longer than a year. And like, what if I don't like it after a year? And Erin was like, it's another 3 months, Grace. Like, you will be fine, girl. And I was like, okay, that's so long. And now I literally just signed my lease renewal offer because 15 months, it has flown by so fast. And I kept saying a lot this year, especially now that I'm feeling better with my health, I keep saying, oh, I want to meet more entrepreneurial community. I want to actually try more of the restaurants here. I want to do all these things. I want. And it's like, and then I would say to myself, I don't know that I want to stay in St. Pete long term. I just feel like I'm not meeting the kind of like, I have really good friends, but I want to meet more entrepreneurial people. And I want to, meet more people that want to actually execute and travel more and, execute on the plans that we come up with. And I had to be radically honest with myself and take that like radical self responsibility to say, what are you doing to actually do that? I'm sitting in St. Pete where there are endless things to do between St. Pete and Tampa, and you're driving distance to so many other things. It's like a 4 hour drive to Miami. You can drive up to Georgia, drive up to South Carolina. Like you can go so many places and do so many things. And how often am I actually doing that? Not very often. Like I keep saying, "Oh, I want to meet more entrepreneurial people." What am I doing to do that? So I had to be like honest with myself and be like, "Okay, I'm actually going to go do it." And so I think that you have to, I don't know, take life by the reins in some way and actually start to execute on things because you can be bored anywhere you go. You can live in the coolest, busiest city where there's a million things to do, and you will still find people who say, ugh, like there's nothing to do here, which is fascinating because I've been to places like LA and heard people say, yeah, I just feel like there's not much to do, or like there's things to do, but they're not up my alley. Babe, you're in LA. LA. I'm like, it is huge. There, you have got to be able to find something that you can enjoy, you know?
Yes. Yeah, and I feel like, especially talking about different cities across the US, Pittsburgh is definitely more on the realm of you're kind of limited by the weather in a lot of
Hmm.
instances. Like with Florida, I guess it's super, super hot in I don't know
Yeah,
if I've ever
you're
actually been there in the summer. I kind of like avoid
don't.
that. But yeah, it's like, it's really hot, right? Well, I guess that's similar to the winter being cold here,
Hmm.
but literally the entire month of January was 0 degrees here. So
Yeah.
obviously you're hibernating, but I also feel in smaller cities, people use that excuse as a reason to not go live their life. They'll be like, "Oh, I live in Pittsburgh. Like, there's nothing to do here. The weather sucks. Like, there's absolutely nothing to do here, even when the weather's nice." But I follow a couple of Pittsburgh influencers that are very like localized Pittsburgh influencers. That's what they do. They post Pittsburgh content. They are out there living their life. And part of
Mhm.
it is definitely that these events and brands and companies reach out to them and tell them about things that are going on so they know what's going on in the city. But I think that that's also a testament of if you're intentional about seeking things out, there are a lot of things going on in your city. You just have to know what's going on. Literally every time I see one of those Pittsburgh influencers post, I'm like, "Oh, I had no idea that that was going on." Well, yeah,
Mhm.
obviously, because I'm not going
Right.
it's not gonna they're not gonna send me an email and say, "Hey, like, here's a list of things going on in your city this weekend." Like, you have to seek it out, but no matter
Mhm.
where you live, things are definitely going on.
Yeah, and we're gonna talk about this later too, like, more later in the episode, but sometimes it's not just that you have to be the one that seeks it out, but you have to be the one that creates it. Like if you want to see some sort of picnic in the park event in your city where a bunch of girls can show up and, bring picnic stuff and hang out and chat, you have to be the one to create that sometimes. Like sometimes it just does not exist already and you have to be the initiator of it. But we'll talk about that more towards the end of the episode with some other kind of strategies for just being intentional. But we want to talk about, like Erin said, intentionally filling your year, filling your month, and filling your week. And before we get into this too, I just want to mention that filling your year and filling your calendar does not mean that we're saying like every single day you have to be doing something. One thing that when I think about what does my ideal day to day life look like and how do I reflect that in my calendar, I am an introvert and I love my alone time to recharge. So personally, I don't make social plans 2 days in a row. One of my best friends here told me that growing up, her parents did not allow her to make social plans 2 days in a row because it was just like too much to coordinate with like, I don't know, her siblings or just too much to bring. So literally
I love that.
if she had a birthday party Friday night and Saturday night, her parents like were like, you got to pick one that you want to go to. But I honestly like as an adult, I love that framework because between Saturday and Sunday, I try to make sure that I have the equivalent of about 8 hours by myself to just catch up on cleaning, meal prep, cooking, whatever, just having time alone. And ideally, I'm spending one night alone between Saturday and Sunday. And sometimes like time just doesn't allow if there's something really important. I have a friend running a half marathon this weekend. I'm going to wake up at the crack of dawn Sunday to go and support her. And, that means Saturday night, I'm going to be in bed really early. So I really don't want to have plans 2 nights in a row or 2 days in a row. But I try to do that even during the week and just allowing time for that because I'm an introvert and need to recharge. So we're not saying go and pack your calendar with a million things. But with that being said, intentionally filling your year. I feel like, and I really want one of those gigantic calendars, like the wall calendars, but I feel like I buy productivity things. I use it for a little bit and then I stop using it, which maybe that's what you're supposed to do. Maybe that's just the seasonality of what resonates with you. But I really want one of those gigantic 365-day calendars because I think that when it comes to intentionally filling your year, this is, I feel like, more of the big things like travel plans that you want to have or like something you need to save for that you want to be intentional about putting in your calendar. You need to look at your year at a glance and think, what things are priority to me to get in here? And I want to frame this as if your friend said, I'm getting married in October, right? And let's say you're listening to this episode when it comes out in March, you would go to your calendar and you would slot that in. You'd say, oh my gosh, so excited for you. I will be there. And you'd put it in your calendar ahead of time. Or if it was a friend's birthday party or a bachelorette trip or even a work event or work meeting, you would give it so much weight, you would put it in your calendar. And I think that we need to start doing that with things that are a priority to us. If there is a trip that you keep saying, I want to take this trip, I want to take this trip, go look at your calendar and just don't even think too hard about it. Just make the executive decision. I'm going to do it on this date. We've talked about this before in the podcast, but minimizing the time between idea and execution, you'll get things done a lot faster. And oftentimes overthinking the date, right? Like, do I go on the 15th or the 16th? It's like, just give yourself a deadline and make the decision. That's been so helpful for me, just sitting down and saying, here's what I want to do. And I did this recently where I was like, okay, I want to get home to my, see my family before Christmas time because I'm going to go home for Christmas, but I don't want to just see them once a year. Okay, I'm either going to go in June or July. Okay, I think I'm just going to go July. Make that executive decision, July. My friend and I are trying to plan a trip to London. We're like May or June. I was like, okay, how about last week of May? Just like throwing out the dates, just being like, boom, 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 let's just get this in the calendar because otherwise it's never going to happen and your year's going to fly by.
I love the idea of framing it with if someone else had an obligation for you, you would slot it into your calendar, but when it's something for you, you don't slot it in, and I am terrible at this because I'm a last minute girl. I plan things last minute. If I look ahead to my year, the only things that I know I have coming up for the entire year of 2026 are I have a work trip in April and I have my friend's wedding in Delaware in May. That's literally the only thing I have for the entire year. And for so long, I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm just like a last minute girl. I just like to plan things last minute. But then things don't ever actually end up getting
Mhm.
planned. You do have to plan things in advance and just put it onto your calendar and be like, no, I'm going. This is something that Alex and I are kind of bad at because his work schedule makes it a little bit harder to plan things in advance. He gets his work schedule like a month in advance. So at the end of April, he'll get it for the month of May. So it does make it a little bit hard to book things. But one thing that we have tried to start doing is just locking it in for the month, being like, okay, we know that we want to go to Europe this year. We did Japan last year. We want to go to Europe this year. And we're like, okay, when's the best time to go to Europe? May. Okay, as soon as you get your May schedule out, we're going to Europe. Like we have to,
Mhm.
it doesn't matter whether it's the 10th or the 17th, depending on what works for your work schedule, but we are going. And I think if in this topic of intentionally filling your year, a lot of it is based on travel because I know that that's a goal for so many people. Going to Japan last year definitely taught me that you don't need a good 3 weeks to go out of the country. Especially when you're talking about going to the other side of the world, I always thought that. I was like, if I'm flying all the way to Japan or Asia, I need to go for 3 weeks because it's so far. We went for 9 days, which maybe that's a little bit long for some people, but 9 days went by so quick, but we were so ready to come home by the end of that
Mhm.
trip. We, like, wanted to be home as soon as possible. So, even if there's a bigger trip where you're thinking that it's going to be this big, huge thing to plan, it's really not. It is a lot simpler than you might think to go out of the country and plan a bigger trip. So, that's something to keep in mind too. The other thing that I really want to do a better job of this year is intentionally seeking out like conferences and things to go to. I know Grace and I have gone to a couple together a couple of years ago, more in like the finance space. And like speaking for both of us, I know we had a great time, but like
Yeah.
we had so much fun on those and like got to hang out with a lot of our entrepreneurial friends and made new friends and networked with people. And lately I haven't been doing a good job of seeking out those opportunities, but then I'll listen to like podcasters and girls that I listen to in the space, and they'll be recapping a conference that they went to. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that that was going on, or like a
Mhm.
retreat that they went on. And I'm like, I didn't even know that that was going on. But you do have to seek them out. You have to seek them out
Yeah.
in advance. And I also love the idea of a 365-day calendar because then you can see your entire
Mhm.
year at a glance and then again color coordinate it to be like, oh, well, my green sticky notes are my trips and
Mhm.
my pink sticky notes are my social events in my city and my yellow sticky notes are conferences that I'm going to and things like that.
Yeah. It's funny because I used to, which now I feel like I have a good handle on my calendar, but when I was first like starting to actually have plans after I moved out of Massachusetts, every time I would go and create my budget for the month, I would pull up my Google Calendar and I'd put it in the month view and I'd look at everything that was coming up. So, which is still helpful for it to do, here and there sometimes, but for example, okay, maybe this month is Mother's Day and it's my friend's birthday dinner and, I want to go to this restaurant, so I need to make sure I have money in my gift budget and my gift budget for both Mother's Day and, my friend's birthday and I'm going to add a little bit more in dining or I've really been craving that spa day, so I'm going to, reflect that in my budget. But it's funny because I would do it with my budget for the things that were already there or the things that were getting put in my calendar, not things I was really putting things I wanted to be there, right? Like I wanted to celebrate Mother's Day or Father's Day or a friend's birthday or whatever it might be. But those are things that are put in my calendar, not things that I'm putting in my calendar. So I would do that with my budget, but I should really be doing it just in general in advance. Also, to your point too about traveling long times, I went on a 10-day trip to Aruba in 2024 with my friend's family, and it was amazing. It was like I have amazing, amazing memories from that trip. But all of us by the end of the trip were literally like, okay, like I was like, enough, like this is really great. I love this. Again, we're in Aruba. It's beautiful, beautiful. but I'm someone who really enjoys my routine. So I want my routine. I also enjoy my gluten-free, dairy-free food at home. Like I love that. I like my latte, my coffee, and I think sometimes we have this perception, like you said, that every single big thing we do has to be done so intensely and for such a long time. But there is a creator, I think her page, I think her at is On the Move with Mad, I believe is her page. But one of my friends actually, one of my guy friends sent it to me a couple years ago and was like, "I think you would love her page." Like I feel like she just has a similar like go-getter kind of attitude, but for travel. And she does these things called out and back where she'll go to a place and back in one day. So she does a day trip from, she lives in DC. She'll do a day trip
I've
to
seen
and
this.
from New York City or something. And it has open, there's also a guy who does it, but he does them to other countries and stuff, like 24 or 48-hour trips.
That's
And
crazy.
I know. But what's so interesting about it though, is it really opened my eyes up because for example, I keep saying I want to go to Chicago. I just want to visit Chicago. I don't know what I necessarily want to do in Chicago in particular. I just really want to go and just kind of check it out and explore. And I'm sure I would find a couple of things I want to do while I'm there, but it doesn't need to be a week long trip. Like, girl, wake up on a Saturday morning, get on. I always take early flights for some reason. I don't know why, probably because they're
Same,
cheaper. I'm never like a 1 p.m. flight girly. I'm like a 7 a.m. flight girly. I always have
same.
been. But it's like get on a 7 a.m. flight, land in Chicago by like 10 a.m., go explore all day, and get on a flight at 6 p.m. You have 8 hours to just do whatever the heck around Chicago and go home. You don't even have to pay for a hotel. Or if you don't want to do it that quick, get a hotel for one night and then fly home midday on Sunday or Sunday afternoon. Like, I don't know why it didn't cross my mind to do that, but there are so many places that I'm like, yeah, I would want to go there, but I don't need to be there for 10 days. Like I can just go there and back. And if I really like it that much, then I can go back and do a trip where I ball out and I do all of the things. But if I just want to go to Chicago to like see a couple of my friends who live there, bop around, check it out, it can be a short little thing. But again, it takes me looking at my calendar and saying, okay, here's when I'm going to go. Let me just book that flight and make the choice to go.
I've done this with Alex a couple of times because when he flies for work, he'll have like a 24-hour overnight in cities. Sometimes the overnights are a lot shorter. Like he'll land in a city at 8 p.m. and then have to fly out the next morning. But he gets in LA overnight a lot. And I've gone with him twice now where I have flown out. I've met him there. The one time I actually got onto his flight. So he was like flying the plane, which like kind of scared me. I was like,
Yeah.
wait. It's like you're flying me right now. But yeah, I got onto his flight and then we flew out to LA and then landed at 9 o'clock in the morning, had the entire day in LA. We like rode bikes up and down the coast, got a good dinner, and then left the next morning. And
Hmm.
LA is a really long flight. Like I definitely wouldn't do that in 24 hours if it wasn't for him, probably, but like 48 hours, that's so
Right.
much time in LA, especially if the weather is really nice and you could just enjoy your time. But I think that brings us into more so intentionally filling your months for some of these smaller things or shorter things. So when it comes to intentionally filling your month, I think that we need to do a better job of making a list of things that we want to do that month, but then actually sitting down with our calendar at the beginning of the month and texting our friends and saying, "Hey, I saw this is going on the 14th. Do you want to go to this event with me?" Or, "Hey, I have been really wanting to check out this area of the city and going to the thrift stores there. Do you want to do that next Saturday?" Just looking at your month and saying, "Okay, I don't have anything planned this month, but these are all of the things that I want to do. So how am I going to fill them in?" I think that this is a lot more impactful because sometimes we, especially when we're talking about like New Year's goals and things that we want to do for the year, sometimes a year can be a little bit too broad when a lot of activities actually are more like month specific or like season specific, especially if you live in a city like Pittsburgh where the seasons are so different. Like spring activities are going to be a lot different than summer, fall, winter activities. So, especially going into like April when the weather is getting really nice, me making a list of, okay, what do I actually want to do this month? And making sure by the first of the month, I've actually slotted some of those things in.
I have a list on my phone before I moved to Florida and when I first got here. I made this list of things I wanted to do or coffee shops I should check out or just things people recommended. And I hardly went back and referenced it. I would go here and there if I was like, okay, I want to, try a new coffee shop today. I would go and look, but I hardly ever referenced it. And so when I was kind of outlining for this episode, I thought to myself, when I create my budget at the top of the month, because that is something that is habitual to me and I always do, I should reference that list, or even just I have a folder of stuff saved on TikTok of things I want to do in Florida, because Florida, guys, I grew up in Massachusetts, which is such a small state in comparison to Florida. Florida, people always say here, they're like, why is Florida so far from Florida? Because you'll see something on TikTok and then it's like a 6 hour drive. And in Massachusetts, that doesn't exist. You can bop over to multiple states from Massachusetts whenever, like within a couple hour drive. So it's very weird to me that things are so far. But I need to like sit down. I think when I'm doing my budget, that's going to be what I do going forward, is pulling up that list and looking at my calendar at a month view and saying, okay, here are the things I'm going to do. Florida's less seasonal in the sense that I feel like it's pretty nice all year round. Some would argue in the summer it's not as nice. I just feel like if you live in Florida, you know that. You're like, yeah, summer's not going to be cute and gorgeous. It's going to be hot and humid, and I'm going to get very, very sweaty. But people still go and do stuff,
Yeah,
and
just wear athletic wear
yeah,
and
you just
put
wear
a hat on
clothes,
or
and you
yeah.
just in Florida, you have to accept that you're gonna have pit stains. That's, like, one thing that you're just gonna have pit stains no matter what time of year it is. So, dress appropriately and accept your pit stains, and you'll be fine, in my opinion. But just, yeah, like, making time to actually do stuff. My friend and I recently, we went and we swam with manatees. And it was something that, like, her and I had a conversation about how we wanna just get out and actually do more and just do things that are actually, like, unique experiences, and we both agree we don't mind putting a little bit of money behind something to go and do it. And so she was like, one day she goes, "Do you wanna go swim with manatees with me?" I was like, "Yeah." Like, why would I say no? There's no reason that I would say no. So I said, "Yeah, sure. Just Venmo me for however much it is, it's fine." So we book the day, we go and do it. It was the coolest experience. I was actually scared out of my mind. I was so afraid I was gonna get eaten by a manatee. They're very docile, but I was very scared. Such a cool experience, so unique, and something that I will look back on with such fond memories and be like, "Oh my gosh, I got to do that." But it took us literally sitting down and looking at our calendar together for the month and saying, like, we went back and forth, "Oh, I'm not available that date. Oh, not this date." And we went back and forth and picked it and then put it in our calendar because it was a priority.
Yeah, that reminds me. I feel like when we're talking about, intentionally filling your calendar and not just defaulting to the, oh, do you want to go grab dinner last minute? Like actually making these memories and going out and doing these more like obscure things that are actually going to create new memories for you. I feel like it's a situation where these types of things are so hard to get yourself to actually go do. Like when that Saturday morning rolls around and you're like, am I really going to swim with manatees today? Like, I have groceries that I could be getting. My house is a mess. I need to clean, like, whatever it may be. I want to go to the gym. It's hard to get yourself to go actually do those things. But then once you're there, it's so fulfilling and so rewarding. This was a little over a year ago, but one of my best friends lives down in Florida. And I was going down for the weekend to go visit her. And it was just going to be the two of us. We just wanted to hang out and have a chill weekend in Florida. And she texted me the week of and she was like, "We should go kayaking in this little, like, not a lake. What's the
Like an
body of
Everglade?
water that I'm thinking of?"
Not an
Yes.
Everglade. Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, it's that. So she booked these like kayaking tickets and me, I'm sitting here, I'm like, kayaking? Like what? I don't want to go kayaking. So the whole time I'm like, are we really going kayaking? Like, what are we doing? And it was so fun. It was scary because one of the routes, like one was a clear water Everglade, but then one was like literally so that you could see alligators. And
Oh,
she
no.
tried to make me go down that one. And I was like, Mandy, we have to turn around. I was like, an
That's
alligator
a no
in a
for me.
kayak, we would be at eye level. We
Mhm.
would literally be at eye level, so I made her turn around, and when we got off of the kayak, the tour guide was like, or the guy that was helping us get out of the kayak, he was like, "Oh, did you see any alligators?" And I was like, "Absolutely not. Like, is that the goal?" And he said that the largest alligator that someone saw that day was 12 feet long.
Yeah, see, that for me is a no.
Absolutely
I
no.
I mean, I thought manatees, I kept calling them underwater SUVs before we went because I was at, which they're very common here, but obviously I'm new to here, so I don't know. I was at the beach last summer celebrating a friend's birthday. We were in the water. all of a sudden I see a bunch of people pointing at something in the water that's like a little bit away from me. And I see a park ranger, like a beach park ranger guy, because it was like a state beach, state park. I don't know what you call it. And I see the ranger like staring at this. And I look over and there's just a big black cloud basically in the water. And I don't know what it is. Everyone's acting normal staring at it. I run for the hills. I literally sprint out of the water. I'm like looking at everyone like, why is no one else concerned? And it was just a manatee. And apparently they're very like docile. So, but you're not allowed to touch them because they're endangered, I think. And I was just like, why is no one questioning this? The thing was huge. It was literally like the size of an SUV. I'm not even kidding. So I was nervous going into it, but it ended up being like so beautiful and such a cool experience. But I feel like with those kind of interesting things, like adding the unique things into the calendar, those are the things that I'm super excited for that I want to do. Like, I don't have any problem showing up for them. It's the balance aspect of it. It's balancing having time to do those things and allocating budget towards doing those things and making sure that my other things are taken care of, like meal prepping, cleaning, whatever. Because when my calendar is too overpacked, I find that, my apartment starts getting cluttered or, I just am not feeling as organized there. And so I think when I'm looking at my month, a good way to think about it is to have 1 to 2 anchor events or activities or things going on in your calendar that are those are your core things. And I think that's a good way to look at it too if you are working on a budget or you just want to be putting your money elsewhere right now and, more of the fun things are just you can't spend as much there, but it's like pick 1 to 2 anchor things. So maybe when you're looking at the month of March, you're like, okay, I really want to get a massage this month. And I also, I mean, it's winter for a lot of people. I was going to say, really want to go to like one of the little Everglades here, but that's usually like not the most relatable because it's literally cold everywhere else. But it's like, yeah, maybe you want to go get a massage and you want to take a day trip into a city that's 5 hours away. It's like, okay, those are going to be my 2 anchor things. I'm going to look at my calendar. I'm going to slot those in. I'm going to make sure my budget reflects that. And then I can think about filling my weeks with other small things, but those are going to be my big anchors for the month. And I think that helps kind of create some of the balance too.
And I will say too, on the topic of balancing doing more fun things while not letting your other priorities kind of go to the wayside. I think for me, this is the benefit of planning things in advance because those types of small, just kind of like life admin things, they kind of morph into the amount of time that you give to them. So when I'm thinking right now it's Tuesday when we're filming this and I don't really have plans for the upcoming weekend, right? If someone were to text me on Thursday or Friday and say, "Hey, do you want to like do something during the day tomorrow?" and insert whatever plan they suggest here, I'm way less likely to commit to doing that because I have not adequately prepared to not be at my house Saturday during the day. Like if I'm home during a weekend, I will just work. But if I know going into the weekend that I have something to do, I will make sure I get everything that I
Hmm.
need to do done so that I'm not working on a Saturday. So that's also the benefit of planning things in advance so that you know that you're not going to spend your Saturday cleaning or meal prepping and you could do it on Thursday night or a Friday afternoon. The next part of this or the last part of it is intentionally filling your weeks, and we don't have to spend too much time here because we kind of chatted a little bit about those smaller, like weekly things before we get into some more tips to intentionally fill your calendar. But when it comes to intentionally filling your weeks, I feel like the biggest thing to remember here is that your calendar isn't just for work tasks, it's for social things too. And social things can be even like scheduling a workout class or going on a walk in a different part of town. It doesn't have to be these bigger, like, oh, I'm going to spend a bunch of money because I'm going to have to plan like 2 dinners with my friends this week. It doesn't have to be that. It's just about filling the smaller things in. For example, for me, my gym that I go to has indoor tennis courts and you can rent them for like $14 an hour. And I have tennis rackets and tennis balls from when I was in Nashville and I would play all the time. But that's just a matter of me pulling up my gym's app and actually booking a tennis court for an hour. And yeah, obviously you would need someone on the opposite side of the court to play with, but like Alex could go play with me, or my friend Emma also goes to the gym with me. She could meet me at the tennis court for an hour, but it's just about actually putting the things on your calendar to have a fulfilling week.
I think that it comes down to this like decisiveness also and making the things a priority that you say are a priority or that you want to be a priority. And it doesn't have to be. I was thinking about this earlier as we were talking. We've done an episode before on the life audit process and looking at all the domains of your life and auditing, where you're at now and where you want to be. And I think that's a good way to, like, that's another episode to listen to after this. If you're like, I don't even know what I want to add into my life, I just feel a little bit lost, go listen to that episode and kind of audit your life and see, okay, yeah, I'm feeling not as connected when it comes to health and wellness, or maybe it's like just like how you're feeling in life. Maybe you're craving more spontaneity, or you're craving more rest or peace. It can be a feeling too, and then you find something, some sort of activity that gives you that feeling. Like if you really want to travel right now, for example, because you're feeling like work is just draining you and you just like want that escape, but let's say travel is not in your budget at the moment to do a trip, or you have an obligation that you have to be home for more often. So it's hard to get away, or you don't have PTO or whatever. It's like, okay, what feeling does travel give you? It gives you an escape. It gives you spontaneity. It gives you some more freedom. How can you give that to yourself in your current weeks, right? Maybe that is, I try a new coffee shop every week because that gives me that feeling of exploration. Or I go to dinner at a new type of cuisine once every 2 weeks. And maybe sometimes you just go by yourself and that's fine, right? And you get the rest and peace by being alone that you would get when you're traveling. And so I think when you're looking at your weeks, that's a good way to look at it. But I think also this idea, we've talked about this in the podcast before, but figuring out what your minimum viable week looks like to end the week and get to the weekend and feel satisfied with the way the last week went, what needs to happen? And for some people, that's, a bit more structured. It's, oh, I need to go to a workout class 3 times that week. I have 2 social outings. I want to work from a coffee shop for 1 day. I want to do 2 activities outside, right? For some people, it's very rigid. For me, I'm like, okay, I want to have 3 workout classes a week minimum. And I try to get outside to go for a walk every day if I can. Some days it's just like doesn't happen, but I try to do it if I can. Or I walk on my walking pad inside. I'm trying to go to a coffee shop, even just work for a little bit, or go to my co-working spot once a week because again, I keep saying I want to meet more entrepreneurial people, so it's like get out and do that. And that feels good to me at the end of the week. And so that's my minimum viable week. But I also am thinking more too when I was like outlining this episode about what I could do to give myself more of the emotions that I crave, like spontaneity. And so maybe my minimum viable week will change.
Yeah, I was thinking a lot about my minimum viable week prepping for this episode too, especially now that, the weather is getting nicer. We're coming out of winter and I'm trying to, yeah, do more fun things and just add more fun back into my life. For me, I feel like my minimum viable week right now is one workout class a week. And I say this because I go to the gym like every single day, even if I'm just going to go walk on the treadmill for 30 minutes and get in the sauna. Like I go to my gym every single day, especially because there's a co-working space there. So I've been like working and working out in like one go, but one workout class per week because that's a thing that I really have to force myself to go. But then I feel really good once I do. Like if I go to a hot yoga class or a solid core class, I don't love the effort of like actually going to the workout class. But then once I'm in it, I'm like, okay, this is good for me. I should do this more. So one workout class a week, one walk in not even like a cute area, but just an area that's not like right outside my front door because I'm walking Bella Girl like 3 times a day right outside my door in my little neighborhood. But am I getting outside of my neighborhood once a week? Absolutely not. And then one kind of just like plan with a friend that isn't dinner, whether that be like playing tennis with my friend for an hour or going to work at a coffee shop and doing kind of a co-working, going on a walk with a friend, just plan with a friend that's not sitting down at a dinner table and spending $100 between like
Hmm.
food and drinks.
Yeah. I think when you really get creative too about how to give yourself those feelings. Even my friend and I the other day, we were talking about this. Like, yes, we like getting dressed up, going to dinner, doing those kinds of things. But we went over to Tampa and we got acai bowls for like, it's a what, like $20 or something. And then we walked around Tampa. We walked like 4 miles and some change. We yapped for a couple hours. We caught up on our lives, whatever. It was so nice, and the whole day we ended up had to pay for parking obviously too, but I think the whole day cost maybe $35, maybe 40 because we stopped for coffee, but I don't feel like that's all that bad for what we got out of it, the amount of time we spent together. Again, we walked so much because we have similar, like, health and fitness goals at the moment, so we were like, "Let's just align and do something that supports both of our goals and also is, like, a good opportunity to catch up." I love Tampa, like, I think Tampa feels so, yeah, it's like a fancy vibe to it. It's just like a, to me, it's a really pretty city. So we were walking around feeling so inspired by our surroundings. We ended up talking about like our business goals and dreams and all these things. And it's funny because that day was, like, so fulfilling to me. I left feeling energized. So now it has me thinking, how can I add more of that into my day to day? Like, maybe it is that when I go over to Tampa once a week to go to the co-working spot, that I take an hour afterwards and I walk around the city and I get that, or I call her while I'm on my walks there, or that she comes and joins me or whatever it might be. But I think it's just good to think about, again, the life that you want to live and how you can actually create your week around that.
Planning walks with a friend is so elite. This is something that I did in Nashville all the time. My friends, almost all of my friends there lived in one part of Nashville, and then I lived in a different part like 10 minutes away. And looking back, I definitely would have lived in the part that they lived in because I would go over there all the time. It was just a really cute town to like go on walks and stuff. And I would pack Bella in my car and drive over to Germantown where they would live. And I would meet my friend who also has a dog, and we would walk around with our dogs for a couple of miles. And then there was a outdoor bar that allowed dogs. So if we were feeling it, we would just go to the outdoor bar and grab a drink and sit there and talk. And by the end of it, between walking a couple of miles, then going and sitting for an hour or 2 hours, that's 5 or 6 hours that we're spending together.
Mhm.
That's so fun. And we got a lot of exercise in. We spent time in the sun there with my dog. Like that is so elite. Okay, let's move on because now we have just like a couple of ending tips to finish out this episode on intentionally filling your calendar. And this first one is initiating more plans, like really being the one to seek out those plans. And we talked about this a little bit in the intentionally filling your month, where you're sitting down and you're seeing, okay, what do I want to do? And then you're actually texting your friends and making the plans to go do it, or doing it by yourself if it's something that you can do alone. I think about this a lot because I love to host, so it's one of those things where if there's something that I wanna do, I'm going to put all of my friends into a group message and say, "Hey, come over and we can do this." For example, I just hosted Galentine's on Friday, and I saw on TikTok these girls for a different holiday. They did like a DIY paint and sip, and I was like, "That is so cute." And I literally just went onto Amazon and I bought canvases for under $10. It was an 8 pack for like, maybe it was a little bit more than $10, but like under $15 for an 8 pack of canvases. And then I also bought the little like canvas stands for, it was a 4 pack for $10. And then I bought two of them. So like $35 in total for all of the supplies that I needed. I already had paint and paintbrushes here. And it was so cute and fun. I do have to say, I didn't plan this in advance. So only I think like five of my friends could come. So there were six of us in total, which is totally fine. Like
Mhm.
we still had so much fun. So I could have planned it a little bit more in advance for sure. But that's just the, all of that is to say, like, you do have to be the one to initiate. And even if you don't have like a big enough space to quote unquote host, you can host things outside. You can plan the walk. You can plan these kind of like smaller things that you can do with your friends, but you have to be the one to initiate.
Yeah, I think there's this expression of, if you want the village, you have to be a villager. Because people always say, "Oh, it takes a village. I really want strong community." But you have to ask yourself, how are you showing up for that and how are you creating that, right? Are you the person to initiate the plan or are you waiting for everybody else to? Because I think a lot of times we all are waiting for somebody else to initiate the plan or to signal that they are so overly interested in the plan that we're gonna put some effort into planning it. But if we all are taking that mindset, nothing's going to get done. And I think sometimes it just takes us being the initiator and creating the space. And it doesn't even, I think hosting is so nice. My apartment, like my living room is pretty small, so I don't really have a ton of space to host people. But even the other week, I used the shared space in my apartment and I hosted a clothing swap. And so a bunch of my friends, there ended up being like a small group of girls. There was a bunch that were invited and then a bunch couldn't come. But there was a small group of girls that came over. We all brought some little snacky item and had a little girl dinner basically. And then everyone brought clothes in their closet that they no longer wanted. And we laid them all out in the shared space of my apartment. And went through each other's clothes, picked stuff out. We used the bathroom in the shared space to try them on. It was so cute. Everyone left with something, some new piece of clothing. And then I took all the other bags and I'm going to bring it to the women's shelter down the street to donate them. And like everyone had a good time. It was so fun. It was just like nice to catch up and have that small group of girls to connect with. But we had a vision board party at my friend's place earlier this year, and we were all talking about wanting to do this. We are like, we should do a clothing swap. And everyone was like, okay, what date works? What should we do? And I was like, I can host it at my apartment. I was like, what about this date? And I'm like, yes or no, can people come? And then we just put it on the calendar because again, we can sit there and go back and forth about what date and who's going to host and da da da, or you can be the one to step up to do it. I also think that when it comes down to making plans, sometimes you just have to be the one to be decisive and be like, this is what's happening and when and what I'm doing. And just saying, like, I'm going to do XYZ thing. And you can join if you want, but I'm going to go regardless. And I've started doing this. I'm comfortable doing things by myself. And I think that you get more and more comfortable the more you do them. And I don't want to get, again, to be old and be like, I never did the things that I wanted to do because I was too afraid to do them by myself. And it's small things, right? But for example, there's this workout studio that I go to, and they have this class that involves a Versa climber, which is this, it looks like a torture device. It's like vertical, and you're almost in this like climbing sort of position. It looks very intense. I keep saying I want to do one of those classes, and my friends are like, yeah, I want to try it. I want to try it. Have we made that plan? No. So I'm doing one tonight. I'm literally going tonight, and I put it in our group chat. I'm going to the class Tuesday at this time. If anyone wants to join, no one's joining me. No one is joining. That's fine. I'm also going to do that hammock, like aerial hammock class this weekend. And that was another thing that I've been talking about wanting to do it for months. And my friends kept saying, I want to join. I want to do that. Oh my gosh, it looks so fun. I want to do that. And I asked people one time, anyone want to do one this day? And everyone was kind of like, yeah. So I said, okay, I'm going to go this Saturday. If anyone wants to join, here's the class I'm doing, whatever. And that's that. Whether they want to join or not, I'm going to do it. But I'm initiating the plan for myself, inviting people in. And if they don't want to come, that's okay. But I'm still going to go and do it.
Learning to be decisive with your plans is make or break whether you do a lot or do nothing with your year. I'm not even kidding. I learned this a couple of years ago. My one like very good friend, she wanted to go to Florida for her 27th birthday. This was like 3 years ago now. And I think originally she texted in our big group of girls at the time, it was like 10 girls, and was like, "Hey guys, I really want to go to Florida for my birthday." She wanted to go to Miami. What weekend works? And the girls were throwing out all of these dates, and one girl couldn't do this date, one girl couldn't do that date. So she texted me individually, and we're like, we're going the week of your birthday. Like that weekend, we are going. She texted in the same group and said, okay, actually, I'm going the week of my birthday. Aaron and I are going. If anyone wants to join, feel free, and we'll get a hotel room for however many people end up going. We figured maybe one more girl would join us. All 10 girls
Mhm.
ended up coming. They all made it work. And obviously, sometimes that won't be the case, but approaching it with decisiveness rather than approaching it with, hey, when does that work? If
Yeah.
you do that, you are going to schedule things out like 6 months in advance for one plan. Same thing with your clothing swap or my
Mhm.
Galentine's. If I would have texted every single one of my friends that I wanted to be at my Galentine because I love them all and I want them to be there, if I would have waited until every single person was available, we never would have done it. So you do have to maybe pick one friend. If it's something that you really don't want to go to alone, pick one friend, pick a date, and then text your greater friend group and say, okay, we're going on this date. Come if you want to. If you can't, no big deal. We'll do something else. And like
Mhm.
that is going to make you fill your calendar so much more.
Yeah. One of my other friends, there's like two of us, we had talked about we should do a girls' trip. Like it would just be fun, something small, low key, maybe driving distance, nothing crazy. So her and I have texted about potential locations. We're going to figure out what a good location would be. And then we're going to text the larger group chat and we're going to say, because I said to her, I said, we should be really decisive about where we're going to go. Pick the like location, pick the dates, and then say, "Hey, we're planning a girls' trip here on these dates. If let us know if you'd like to come by XYZ date. Here's what we estimate would be the cost." And then if people don't reply by that date, sorry, you're not coming. Like, you know what I mean? You have to just like move forward with your plans because again, you can sit there waiting all day for people and sometimes they're just not going to follow through. They're going to throw out a million different dates or whatever and it just makes it too chaotic. I also think too cuz obviously we're talking about trips and, big events and whatever, but I also think that sometimes you just have to be the connector of people that you want to kind of get together to build more community. And a good example of this is I have friends here individually. I have these three friends, and they all do something in the content space to a degree, not necessarily content creators, but different things in the content space on social media. And I was thinking to myself, I keep saying I want more entrepreneurial community. And I've had conversations with all of them and I start reflecting and I'm like, we all four of us are the same flavor of like bluntness almost in the way that we think about business. And I thought to myself, why don't I just try to bring them all together and just I'm the one who tries to host something together. Now, again, my apartment is not the biggest of spaces, so hosting people in my space doesn't always necessarily work. So I texted all of them individually and I said, I'm hosting a creator entrepreneur dinner with my creator friends here. And this weekend specifically, would that Thursday, Friday, or Saturday work? And this was, mind you, this was a month in advance. The dinner is this Friday when we're filming this. And this was a month ago. I texted all of them and they all confirmed what date would work. I picked the date. I said, okay, it's going to be this Friday. I'm going to find a restaurant and I'll let you know a time. I'll get back to you. Then I go and I call these restaurants. I make the reservation. Now we're going to this dinner. And it's been in everyone's calendar for over a month now. And I think we're all going to get along and get a lot of value out of it. But sometimes you have to be that connector also to bring people together. But again, it all goes back to being the initiator and just being decisive about it and getting a plan in the calendar.
I love that. And our last tip for intentionally filling your calendar, I feel like this goes hand in hand with kind of just that decisiveness and not waiting around for your friends to make the decisions and plan the actual dates for things. It's finding communities of people who are already doing the things that you want to do. So, a good example of this is a couple of years ago when I just got out of a relationship. I moved into my very first apartment alone for the first time in my life, like without roommates. And I was just craving doing something different and putting myself out of my comfort zone. And I joined a basketball league here in Pittsburgh, like an adult co ed basketball league. And I literally signed up as a free agent. I just signed up on the website and a team picked me up. So I walked in on the first day. I didn't even know what my team looked like or who I was looking for, but it all worked out. And it was so fun. That league was so fun. And then they asked me to come back the year after. So I played with them 2 years in a row. But I feel like that's a good example, and obviously that can be applied to any of your interests. There's run clubs, there's tennis leagues, there's so many different things. I know you play pickleball, there's
Mhm.
definitely leagues that you can join for that as well. But just finding the community of people already doing the things so that you don't have to wait for a friend to go out and do
Mhm.
these things that you want to do.
Another good example is EF Ultimate Break. Like, if you want to travel more and you feel like, because this was something I ran into where I felt like my friends didn't have the PTO to be able to do their traveling that they wanted to do and the travel that we wanted to do as friends. And I was like, well, I don't want to wait. I want to go do these things. Or they didn't have the flexibility in their calendar or the budget for it. And I thought to myself, why not just go book something on EF Ultimate Break? You're showing up for a trip with other people who want to travel and you're already going into that experience knowing that those are the people who are going to execute. You know how they say trips never get out of the group chat? It's like those are the people whose trips get out of the group chat because here they are on a trip with you. And because they did the same thing, they're the same kind of person who wants to get out and do things. Same with the leagues. There is another organization too. It's a company called Real Roots, and transparently, they reached out to me about a partnership, and I thought the organization was so cute. And basically, it's where you can find curated it's like these curated local meetups for women in your community. And I was like, this sounds like the cutest idea, but I didn't want to film at one of the meetups because I felt like it just might feel awkward. So I was like, I was like, I would totally go to one, but I was like, I just don't really want to film at it. So, but I wanted to mention it because they're in a lot of cities around the US and they get really, really good reviews and they have different, to my understanding, you fill out some sort of little questionnaire about yourself and they try to match you up with people they think would be similar to you. They also have groups for like separate groups for moms. They have separate ones for people who are 45 and up, which obviously that might not apply to people listening to the podcast because everyone here is in their 20s and 30s. But it just goes to show that they're really trying to create community with people that are like minded. And I'm not sure of the price of it, but it looks really cute. And I just think again, you're going to go and you're going to meet people who are in the same mind space as you of wanting to get out and actually meet other people and do other things. And the last one that I'll say that I think is a good community to meet other people who are, again, already doing things is with volunteer groups. I know I mentioned this earlier in the episode that I used to do so much service when I was in high school and college, and that's something that gave me so much joy. And I had the realization recently that I hadn't really done a ton of it in some sort of recurring way. I'd, done service here and there, but I really wanted to commit to something that was going to allow me to do that on a recurring basis. And so I started helping out with some social media stuff with a ministry that my friend runs, a nonprofit ministry. And that's been super fulfilling. But then I was like, I want to, again, now that I'm like back in it, it's giving me so much joy to be able to serve. I want to do it even more. And so I found this organization, my neighbor volunteers for them and introduced me to it. And it's called Deck My Room, and they're available in, they serve hospitals and I think it's like over 42 states. So if this is of interest to you, definitely see if it's available to you because they need more volunteers. But essentially, you get to go and decorate hospital rooms for kids who are going to have prolonged stays of 3 weeks or more. And I got to do my first deck. It was like a few weeks ago, but unfortunately, the child wasn't feeling well when we got there. So we just had to leave the stuff and they were going to decorate his room later on for us. But I actually got to do my first full on deck yesterday when we're filming this. And I went with my neighbor. It was technically her deck and I got to tag along, but it was a princess themed room, princesses and mermaids. And it was just so cute and so fulfilling to get to do. But going and doing those things, you're going to meet, obviously, with Deck My Room, you're usually going alone, but you get to meet people at the hospital who are interested in this and whatever. But if you're doing something or serving in a capacity where it's like group service, you'll of course get to meet other people who value that too. So I think that's a good way to meet people as well.
No, it's such a good way to build community. I feel like going back to college, like you said, it's so much easier to do things like that in college because they're sort of giving you those opportunities and putting you into that community for you. Like I know in my sorority, we would do it all the time. And that was like our community. And you got to
Hmm.
spend the Saturday afternoon doing community service, but also with your community of people. But then as an adult, you really have to seek out those opportunities. So I love that so much. But with that, I think that brings us to the end of today's episode. This was a fun one talking about filling your social calendar and being more intentional with your time in 2026. If you have any other ideas or things that have helped you do more and just live a bigger, fuller life, definitely leave it in Spotify because we love taking inspiration from all of your comments. And I know you guys have been interacting with each other in Spotify in the comment section as well, which is so fun. So definitely leave all of your questions, comments, feedback in Spotify. But with that, thanks for tuning into the podcast. And until next week.